Good morning. Good morning, Royal We Fellowship. Shabbat Shalom. Happy Saturday to you. We're going to go ahead and open up in prayer and wait for some people to come in. We are starting a little bit late this morning. My apologies for that. Let's go ahead and open up in prayer this morning, though. Our Father, who art in heaven, how holy is your name? And your kingdom will come and your will shall be done here on this earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day and each and every day our daily bread, and forgive us of our sins as we forgive those who have sinned against us. Lead us not into temptation, and deliver us from the evil that's in this world, for thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever. And everybody said, amen. Again, welcome everybody. Shabbat Shalom. It's good to be here with you on this Saturday morning. For those of you who are new, joining us on Royal We Fellowship for the first time, welcome. We are in the book of Exodus right now in the Bible. We are following along from the beginning of the ancient word of the Bible, and we are applying our understanding of narcissistic abuse to it. We're gaining a different perspective and understanding of just how toxic the world is and how we see God navigating people just like you and just like me in and around the toxicity of this world. So if you are new to Royal We Fellowship, then welcome. I hope that you gain some valuable insight into your situation, and I hope that we continue to grow and we continue to flourish. All right, well, let's go ahead and continue on with where we are this morning, and that is in Exodus chapter 15. Now, we are beyond the point now where God has taken his people, the mixed multitude, the Israeli people. He's taken them out of Egypt, out of captivity, out of oppression. This is the story of Moses. And the Lord used Moses as a partnership, as a team. And for those of you who have been with the Royal We Fellowship, you'll understand from the past episodes, from the past lessons, what we see taking place is that Moses did not show up into Egypt as a savior. Moses did not go into Egypt saying, hey, everybody, I'm here. It's time to leave the oppressiveness that you're living in Egypt. Because yes, the people were oppressed in Egypt. Yes, they were abused on the daily. However, to those people, the Israeli people, the mixed multitude people, the Hebrew people, all the different tribes that were under the oppression of the Egyptian government, they called Egypt their home. So they worked there. They lived there. They had homes there. They bought food there. They had, for lack of better terms, a society, much like the society that we live in here in America in a lot of ways, or in any place, with the exception that in Egypt it was a very dictatorship. It was a rule. It was like they had the king, the pharaoh, and so it was that type of society. But nonetheless, it was a society that functioned. Yes, they were oppressed people. Yes, they weren't happy, but that was their life and that was their living. Moses shows up to try to get these people out of the oppression, and it's important that we understand why they needed to get out of the oppressive rule of Egypt, because even though they were living, even though they were buying and selling food, even though they were working, even though they had homes, even though they were having kids, and this is all a result of back in Joseph's day. Joseph opened the door to allow all of these Hebrew people and all the mixed multitudes to come into Egypt. Because if you remember, Joseph was the one that stored up all the grain when God had stricken all the world with a famine. And so, but nonetheless, even though they had all of these things in Egypt, they didn't have true freedom. They couldn't worship the way they wanted to worship. They had forgotten, even though the people were oppressed, they forgot how to really worship their Lord. And now the Lord heard their cries. And I believe the cries that the Lord heard were the cries of the oppressed. We're not free to worship. We're not free to believe. We're not, sure, we have houses, we have food, we have homes, but we're not free to be who we really are. This is how a lot of us, by the way, end up in toxic relationships. Oftentimes we go into these dysfunctional, toxic situations, whether it's family members, even toxic marriages. And on the surface, it seems like we have the things that we need. It seems like we have all that we could really need. We have our basic survival things met. We have a home, place to stay, roof over our head. We have food, but we're oppressed in our heart. We're oppressed in our soul. We're not able to truly be ourselves. I know I felt this way in a toxic relationship. From the outside, it looked like I would have no reason to complain going into a place where there's a big family of people and every Christmas Eve they have a gathering. But I couldn't go into this situation and be what the Lord wanted me to be. I couldn't pray. I couldn't talk. I couldn't even have an opinion. How many of you could resonate with that? In the oppressive relationship, it gets to a point where you can't even have an opinion. So you know what it's like to be around an oppressive people, narcissistically abusive and toxic people. They oppress you in exchange for you to have a place to stay, for you to have food. And so at some point, you need to come to this determination of, is it worth it? Is it worth it to be abused? Is it worth it to be oppressed? Is it worth it to not be who you are called to be just to have a place to stay? It's a good question. And it's a difficult question. And where we're at in the Bible right now is following along with the Hebrew people and the mixed multitude in their struggle. So again, now that that part is established, we can understand that how when Moses showed up, Moses didn't show up as a hero to save the people. They didn't really even want to go. Moses showed up, and what God did is God positioned Moses, God positioned Moses to irritate the Pharaoh, challenge the Pharaoh, so that the Pharaoh would become angrier, more narcissistic, and then God can harden Pharaoh's heart, and then Pharaoh can lash out at the people. And essentially what took place is the abuse became so bad that Pharaoh chased the people out. And then Moses was there to say, okay, follow me this way, guys. Let's run. Let's go. Let's go. So this is how it went. Moses didn't show up and say, hey, I'm here. Follow me, everybody. No, Moses went, and the people were like, oh, who's this guy? What do you want? We're fine. We don't need to go anywhere. We're happy. But then suddenly Pharaoh was getting angrier and angrier and inflicting more abuse on them. His real heart was being shown. And then the people were like, okay, where do we go? What do we do? And Moses was like, all right, now you all are ready to go. Follow me. This is how the Lord used Moses to free his people. All right. Now, this is where we're going to get into some difficulty, because you have people who are celebrating that they are leaving the toxicity of Egypt, but you have people who are grumbling. You have those who understand that it's a good thing to leave, but you have others who they're not excited about it. You have many who are like, this is ridiculous. We're leaving our homes. So let's follow along. And as a result, we also saw in last week that there's a lot of celebrations surrounding this. For those of you who understand Hebrew culture, you'll recognize Passover, these different celebrations. And what's interesting about these is these celebrations are based on specific instructions. And it comes out of Exodus, by the way. It comes as God instructing the people on how to share in remembrance of when God saved them. And the reason in the last chapter, especially in Exodus 14, God gave specific instructions because the people didn't want to celebrate. I mean, when you think about leaving the toxic environment that you were in, the last thing you really think of is having a party. A lot of us say, oh, no, I will party. Oh, my gosh, I'm free. But that's not really what it feels like. In all honesty, if you look back at the moments you left the relationship, it was scary. You didn't know where you were going to go. You didn't know what you were going to do. It's not something you want to pop champagne and blow little things. It's just not. As much as there's talk on YouTube about, people saying, woo, me leaving the narcissist and waving little things and blowing, glitter in the air, it just doesn't feel that way. There's a lot of fear involved. I mean, if we're being honest, there's fear, there's confusion, there's what are we going to do? Where are we going to go? And so the Lord knew all of this, and the Lord said, this is what you're going to do. I'm going to give you step-by-step instructions on how to celebrate this, because one day you're going to celebrate this. I know you don't want to now, but you need to listen to what I'm telling you. Go and get some animals, make the sacrifice, have a barbecue, and this is what you're to say to your children. At this time every year, you're to eat bread that's unleavened. And we talked about what unleavened bread represents. It represents hastiness. The Lord said, I called you out of there and to move quickly. So in honor of that, to remember that, you're going to have bread with no yeast. You're not going to have anything with yeast. Yeast represents taking the time to do something, to make food that takes its time to expand. It goes into perfection. The Lord is saying, when you leave a toxic situation, it's not about waiting for the right time. It's about going when you need to go. So you're going to honor that by having unleavened bread. This is what hastiness is. And you're going to celebrate this, and you're going to share with your kids what the Lord has done. Year after year, you're going to tell them the Lord has taken you out on this day. The Lord had to tell them to celebrate. They didn't want to. They weren't like, woo, let's party. We're leaving our homes behind. So the Lord gave instruction, and this is why the Passover instructions are so important to the Hebrew people. This is why they followed them to a T. This is why it's strict. And I don't know if any of you have ever tried to do Passover, but it's a lot of reading things, and you have to follow along a lot of stuff. And you're like, why? Why are there so many rules? Well, because that's how it really was. The Lord gave them rules and told them how to celebrate. And so as we continue on as we continue on now, the Hebrew people, the mixed multitude, are continuing on in their journey. They're leaving. They're becoming more distant. The Lord has gotten them out of Egypt. And not only that, but they crossed the river, and the Lord had swallowed up all of the Egyptians in the river, or in the sea, after the Hebrew people had crossed. And now we're in chapter 15, and this is going to be a short one, and that's why I wanted to allow for that long intro, because we're getting into more of what it was like for the Hebrew people, for the mixed multitude of people as they were leaving. When they saw the Egyptians and the Pharaoh crushed by the waters, they were all in awe of what they had just experienced. They were in awe that the Lord had led them out, had separated the waters for them. I mean, they witnessed huge miracles. And just like a lot of you, myself included, we witnessed miracles when we were leaving the toxic relationship. I'm going to share a story with you real quick. When I left California with my family, it wasn't an easy decision, and we weren't really prepared. We really weren't. There was a lot of things that we needed to make this journey. We had 2 vehicles at the time, and one of them I didn't think was going to make it. It didn't have good tires, and some people at church we've never met before came up and basically said, the Lord spoke to me and said that you guys need to get out of here. And what would it take for you to get out of here? And I think the person overheard us talking of how we needed to leave where we were in California, and God just put on their heart. And we said, listen, one of our cars is not doing well, and this random person, and we've never seen this person again, by the way, random person said, we're going to get your car ready. And when we get it ready, will you be able to go? There was an urgency. These people, we had no idea who they were. They had this urgency in them, and they didn't even know the situation we were in. And so anyways, they put new tires on the car, got it cleaned up. And anyways, it was a miracle for us. And we looked and we're like, wow, we really need to go. That God is really really in this. Things are lining up. And so we packed up and we left 2 cars, and that's it. It's all we had. 2 cars packed full of stuff and traveled 5 states away, right? So you're going to see some miracles that are going to help to propel you. And in these miracles, you're going to be filled with some awe moments of the Lord. And so we see this in chapter 15 when Moses and the Israelites, they started singing songs. They started singing songs based on some of these miraculous things as they realized their oppression was getting further behind them. And so in chapter 15, we see the song of Moses and Miriam. I will sing to the Lord, for he is highly exalted. Both horse and driver he has hurled into the sea. The Lord is my strength and my defense. He has become my salvation. He is my God, and I will praise him. My father's God, and I will exalt him. The Lord is a warrior. The Lord is his name. Pharaoh's chariots and his army he has hurled into the sea. The best of Pharaoh's officers are drowned in the Red Sea. The deep waters have covered them. They sank to the depths like a stone. On and on and on, in the greatness of your majesty. So on and on and on we see all throughout chapter 15 that the mixed multitude are coming up, they're having song in their heart because of the miracle that they witnessed as God led them out of the oppressive relationship that they were in with Egypt. And but what's interesting about this is that even though they're singing, and even though you might sing for a period of time when you are first leaving the toxic relationship, it's going to start to become a bitter, sweet, back and forth deal. They're singing, yes, but when reality hits them that they are separated from a lot of the things that they were used to in the toxic relationship, it becomes hard again. So let's follow down in chapter 15. Let's go all the way past the songs. They're singing, they're happy. And this also, by the way, shows us just how volatile and how temperamental we as humans can be. And it shows you a lot of how we can become fearful when we don't exactly know what we're going to have. And we can be singing one moment and the next moment be scared and not sure what we're doing away from the oppressive relationship. So after they're singing in down in verse 22 of chapter 15, we see this. It says, "Then Moses led Israel from the Red Sea, and they went into the desert of Shur. For 3 days they traveled in the desert without finding water." So 3 days. All right. Now, when you leave a toxic relationship, and the water can represent any type of something that is nourishing to you. The water can represent something that you're used to having. The water can represent comfort. The water can represent relationships. The water is something that you feel you need for survival. And yes, you really do need water. But in this particular verse, I want to use it as something that you had plenty of in the oppressive relationship, even though the oppression wasn't worth it. But now you don't have that. So there's something in your life that you did have even though you were oppressed, but now you don't. And watch what happens. Verse 23, "When they came to Marah, they could not drink the water because it was bitter." Okay. This is why the place is called Marah. "So the people grumbled against Moses, saying, 'What are we to drink?'" A lot of times when we leave oppressive relationships, whether it's families or whatnot, it can feel good for a moment. Yes, we're out. We're finally out. But then the reality sets in that, oh my gosh, I'm cut off from what they provided. Standing up for myself and leaving means that I'm cut off from the comforts of what the narcissistic, toxic family, people, friends, what they provided. Oh my gosh, we used to go out. I used to have people to go out with. But now I'm in this situation where I'm trying to go out with these people, but it's bitter. It's not the same anymore. They're not the same as those. And then you get confused. Then you could be in like, and then you get in this place where you long and you go through a period of missing them. This is bitter compared to that. That was fun because of the love bombing or whatever happened on the narcissistic side, whatever you became used to, you remember that. And now you start to grumble. You grumble internally, you grumble inside, even though you want to say, I'm glad to be out. There's a part inside that's grumbling, saying, man, I miss that though. I want some of that. This is no different than what the mixed multitude of people who were following Moses was going through. They were, on one hand, happy that they were out of the oppressive relationship with Egypt. They were no longer under the oppression of Pharaoh. They were no longer in that toxic, abusive environment. But now they get to this point where, like, well, we used to have stuff to drink all the time. We used to have things to do, and now we're in a desert. We have no water. We have nothing to do. This sucks. Listen, when you leave a toxic relationship, it's not going to feel good. When I provide one-on-one coaching with people, a lot of times who are struggling on whether or not they should leave and detach from a toxic relationship, I let them know the reality of this. Listen, whatever decision you're going to make, whether you stay or go, it's going to feel wrong until you make it right. In other words, I try to help people to understand, don't get this grand idea that you're going to leave and instantly life is going to be better, because it's not. You're going to leave and you're going to walk away from things that you relied on and were used to having. Your body was used to having these things, whether it's water, food, place to stay, even the chemicals within your own body, your own biology, the endorphin releases, the adrenaline releases because of the fight. Your body has become accustomed and used to all these things, and now you're taking these things away from your body. It's like quitting coffee, cold turkey, or anything like that. Your body's going to crave it. Your body's going to long for these things, even, dare I say, some of the oppression. You might experience that where your body is shedding its reliance on the oppression even. And a lot of people don't understand this. I didn't rely on the oppression. I hated it. Yes, you did. But your body became used to that hatred that you had towards it. And the adrenaline that was pumping through your veins, your body started to rely on that. And so when you leave that and you don't have that anymore, this is where we get into, well, now you have to find things in life to replace this. Not easy to do. But the Lord is doing something interesting with the mixed multitude of people here. He's basically doing a cold turkey thing. If you notice, and as we continue on in the chapters, I have a theory here. This is just a theory. It's not biblical. But we know, as we're going to continue on, that the Lord has the mixed multitude of people and the Israeli people wandering in the desert for 40, I don't want to say 40 years yet. We're not there yet, but for a very long time. The Israeli people are not established for generations to come. They are left wandering in the desert for a long time after they get out of Egypt. Here's my theory. My theory is that is how long it took for them to shed and break all of the dependencies that they had in Egypt, all of the addictions that they had based on that toxic environment. That takes a long time. You are not going to leave a toxic situation and environment and just shed immediately all the things that you became dependent on. So what we're going to see in the chapters to come is we're going to see a group of people who are grumbling. We're going to see a group of people who fight with Moses even. Why did you take us out of our home? Why did you take us away from the oppressive relationship? We're going to see a group of people that go through all of the withdrawal symptoms that you go through and that I went through when we leave a toxic family behind. The withdrawal of that was supposed to be family. That's where we were supposed to be. And the hurt that's involved in that. And what's interesting is it takes a long time to work out all these chemical imbalances. It's to resolve these chemical imbalances within your own body, to resolve these addictive patterns, the things you're used to, the oppression that you're used to. It takes a long time. It took these people wandering around the desert for generations to break the curse, if you will, of those addictions. That's my opinion as to why Moses and these people wandered for generations, as opposed to just going and building a new city right away. They couldn't. They needed to heal. They needed to heal down to their very inner soul, down to their genetics. They needed to heal. And that could possibly take generations. But don't let this discourage you. Because what you do today, as far as leaving a toxic relationship, as far as taking that step to embolden yourself, as far as taking that step to become stronger, taking that step and saying no to abuse, even though you may feel like you're wandering around a desert for a long time, the Lord might be preparing for your descendants, for generations after you. This might be your role in this life, is not to necessarily reach the pinnacle of freedom to where you feel good, but to be the one who takes the step out of abuse and says no more, and then instills in your children or people around you, get out. And then in the generations to come, they live a completely different way. where abuse and the narcissism is eradicated from affecting people. This is the story of Exodus that we're going to continue to get into. So as we see here at this current time, though, the Lord is leading these people with Moses, but the people are grumbling. They're crying. They're saying, why is this? Why are we here? What are we to drink? And so Moses in verse 25 cried out to the Lord, and the Lord showed him a piece of wood. He threw it into the water, and the water became fit to drink. The Lord issued a ruling in verse 25 still. Instruction for them and put them to the test. He said, if you listen carefully to the Lord your God and do what is right in his eyes, if you pay attention to his commands and keep all of his decrees, I will not bring on you any of the diseases I brought on the Egyptians. For I am the Lord who heals you. Then they came to Elim, where there were 12 springs and 70 palm trees, and they camped there near the water. The Lord is telling the people here, listen, I have taken you out of that oppressive regime, and this is going to be difficult. We are cold turkeying this, and we have to. You've got to shake off all of the oppressive behaviors and actions and attitudes that you picked up in Egypt. And if you do, I will heal you, and you will not be inflicted with the same diseases as those that there were in Egypt. When we leave toxic relationships, we have to make a lot of changes. We cannot be the same people that we were when we lived in the toxic relationship. Whether that is living a life of partying, of drinking, of whatever the case may be. The Lord is saying, listen, I will take you out and heal you, but you've got to get rid of this lifestyle. If you get rid of this, if you get rid of these things, and you pay attention to what I'm doing, I will heal you. But if you hang on to what was going on in that oppressive relationship, if you still desire that, then you're going to experience the same things that happened to those people. This is something that we all need to pay attention to. A lot of people will come out of toxic relationships saying things like, I miss the person I used to be. I was this fun, energetic, outgoing person. I was this and that, and I was this. You were everything that allowed an open door to get you into an abusive relationship. The Lord is telling you and me and the Egyptians that those things have got to go. You see, narcissistic abuse and healing from toxic relationships isn't just about getting away from toxic people. It's about the Lord pruning you and cutting the areas out of your life personally, individually, that allowed abuse into your life. So whether it was being the fun time, good social person or whatever, that you're just out there having a good time going, woo, I'm a party person, I'm just fun, everybody loves me. If that was you, the Lord is saying there's a lot of that needs to be shaved off. That's the part that allows some diseases into your life. And we don't like to think of it. But we're like, but that was me, and I was so likable, and people liked me. Yeah, you were so likable that toxic people took advantage of you. Abusive boyfriends, abusive girlfriends, yeah, they warmed right up to you because you were so good, and they took from you, stole from you. So you need to shave some of these things off. And a lot of us fear, well, what's that going to make me? It's a good question. What's it going to make you if you allow the Lord in your life to shave off all of these things that allowed toxicity into your life? You know, it's going to look different. You're going to feel like, well, I'm not as fun anymore. Okay, perhaps. But if fun is what attracts narcissistic individuals into your life, takes you down roads and paths that you don't belong being in, then what good is that type of fun? You know what I mean? And so this is where we are with this. We need to accept the changes that the Lord wants to make in our lives, whatever that may look like. And it's going to take a while. This is the story that we are getting into. And with that, we're going to wrap it up right there. I want to thank all of you for being a part of Royal We Fellowship this Shabbat, this Saturday morning. Blessings to all of you. If you would like to contribute to Royal We Fellowship, you can do so. Down in the description box, you will find links to donate. It's not required, but if you are inspired to donate to the Royal We to help keep the Royal We Fellowship going, then I encourage you to do that. And continue also in your prayers as to whether or not Royal We Fellowship should expand and perhaps rent a room and start to do gatherings in person. I don't know. Still trying to wait that out and see what the Lord would like to do, or if just doing this every morning is fine. Every Shabbat is fine. So lots to think about, consider as we move forward, but have a blessed week, everybody, and thank you so much for being here once again. Shabbat Shalom. Have a beautiful morning, have a beautiful weekend, and a beautiful week ahead. Amen? All right, and we will be back next Saturday morning, next Shabbat, right here on the Royal We Fellowship.